Jake here for American Trucks, and today I'm taking a look at this Barricade HD off-road front bumper with LED fog lights fitting 2021 and newer F-150s, excluding the Raptor. Extra clearance, more protection, and aggressive good looks are the name of the game here for the Barricade HD off-road front bumper. And if you want all of that and more for one of the best prices in the segment, this is going to be just your speed. Now, right out of the gate, you're probably going to notice that this bumper is cut up quite a bit higher than your standard one. So you get that aggressive off-road styling and some extra clearance here to boot. If you're looking to do any kind of off-roading, overlanding, or anything like that, having that better approach angle and more clearance in front of the tires is going to be a real benefit for any non-pavement pursuits you may undertake. Now, you also get some integrated fog lights for extra visibility at night and in adverse conditions. These, as you can see, are 3-inch square LED fogs that are equipped with 5-watt Cree LEDs with 6000K temperature light. So, safe to say, these are going to be pretty bright. More than enough to light up the trail or the road if you need it. Both fog lights feature an aluminum housing with a clear polycarbonate lens, and they are IP67 waterproof rated as well, so they're going to be a durable and worry-free setup. Now, you do also get all of the wiring that you need to get these hooked up as well, including a switch to activate the lights too. Now, you could likely get these wired into your factory switches, but that might take some additional work. Instead, you've got everything you need right here to get it done. Now, Barricade does brand this one as a heavy-duty bumper for good reason. As you can see, it's pretty hefty. It's constructed from 5/32 steel plates, and this sucker is tough. The steel is cold formed as well, so that means that the metal hasn't been heated up and subsequently weakened in the bending process. Instead, this is all formed to what you see while it is still cold to retain strength and structural rigidity. Also topped off with a 2-stage finish, starting with an epoxy pre-coating and topped off with this textured black powder coat. So it's going to stand up to the elements and provide you lots of protection from bumps and bruises in daily life or out on the trail, all while looking good and well integrated. This was designed to be a bolt-on replacement for your factory bumper as well, so there's no modification to your truck needed to make this work, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. First, I want to talk about the price, since that is also a big selling point here. Coming in at about $1,300 for this kit as you see it here, this is one of the least expensive full replacement front bumpers on the market for this gen of F-150. Now, you're not getting everything here. You'll notice that there is a lack of a winch mount, and again, like I said, the skid plate is sold separately. Now, you could spend a lot more on a different front bumper with all kinds of fixings, but this one is going to give you additional light and all kinds of protection along with good looks for a decent price. Installation for this one is going to come in at a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it will likely take you about 2 hours to get everything installed. Now, there is no drilling or cutting required, and again, this one is meant to bolt on in place of your factory front bumper without any modifications, and it's going to reuse the factory hardware and mounting points. However, as you can tell, this thing is big. It's a heavy piece. There's a lot of heft to this. So I would highly recommend having some assistance for this job because it's just going to make your life a lot easier and a lot safer. You are also, again, going to have to run a bit of wiring for the lights, but it's nothing too complicated. Everything is pretty much set up to go. You've got the pigtails here that plug into the back of the fog lights themselves, that switch that gets run into the cabin, and you've already got an inline fuse for your power cable and your ground cable, which have the grommets on the end of it too. Couldn't really be much easier when it comes to wiring. One thing worth noting though is that if your truck is equipped with front parking sensors, you will need to get the additional sensor relocation kit, which we do have available on our site. Overall though, this is a pretty straightforward job, one that you can definitely accomplish at home. Again, I would just recommend having a second set of hands there to help you get this on. And to show you the entire process now, let's head over to the install bay.
Tools required for this install include an electric ratchet, a ratchet, a 19, 16, 13, and 10 millimeter wrench, needle nose pliers, a clip remover tool, a panel remover tool, a 21, 18, 16, 13, 11, 10, 8, and 7 millimeter sockets, a 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter, a couple different size extensions, a 4 millimeter Allen bit, and the included Allen wrenches. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing a front bumper on our F-150, so let's get right to it. So first we have to remove our stock grille. So to do that, we're going to pop the hood and remove all of these push clips that are holding in our radiator cover. So now coming to the front driver's side fender well, we have these two 7mm screws here that hold in our lower trim. So I'll take them off with the 7mm socket. And now we can do that same thing on the other side. So now with our two 7mm screws removed from both sides, we can pull back and release all of the tabs that hold in our lower trim piece. Now with our lower trim piece removed, we have access to the two bolts we need to remove on each side of the bottom of the grille. These are going to be 8mm, so I'll take an 8mm socket and get these out. Now we can repeat that process on the other side. So now we can go ahead and remove our four 10mm bolts at the top of our grille, holding it in. Now we can go ahead and disconnect our electrical harnesses up top. So I'm going to get a clip remover tool in here to pop this clip out. So now with all of our hardware removed and our harnesses disconnected, we can pull back on the grille to remove it. So now with our grille removed, we can go ahead and disconnect the connection on our main harness here. So we can pull up on our gray tab, and then this will slide right out. So now with everything out of the way, we have three 21mm bolts on our frame rail that are holding in our bumper on each side. So I'll get a 21mm socket, we can access them from the top and get those off. So now I'm going to take my 21mm socket and I'm going to fully remove the nut on the inside of the frame rail and leave the nut on the outside of the frame rail up top about halfway threaded on until we get the bolts off on the other side, just to hold it in place. And then I'll go underneath the truck to get our bottom bolt in our frame rail. So now we're on the outside of the driver's side frame rail. We're going to be loosening this top bolt about halfway. That way it's still holding on to our bumper while we remove the nuts on our other side. So now coming under the car, we're gonna be removing the nut right underneath the one that we just loosened. So again, 21 millimeter socket, and we'll fully remove this one. And now we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now that we have 2 of our nuts left threaded, 1 on each side, you can go ahead and grab yourself a buddy. We're gonna remove the nut on one side, pass the tool off, we'll remove the nut on the other side, and then we'll remove our bumper. And once again, we're using that 21 millimeter socket to remove these nuts. And then once you have those nuts removed, you can lift up and away. So now with our stock bumper removed, we can start assembling our new bumper. So we'll start with our grills. We have a long one. It's gonna go right in the middle here. And then we have 2 rectangular ones that are gonna go on the outsides. And now on these outer ones, this kit actually comes with fog light LEDs that are gonna go in there. But if you don't wanna run them, you can use these grills. It's gonna be the same thing, slides right in, and it's gonna take the same hardware as these 3. So for our grills, we're gonna be using our 6 millimeter combo bolt, as well as our flange nut. Now we're gonna put our combo nut through the top, have our nut come on the bottom, just so that you can't see the bolt sticking out from behind the grill. And then we'll just repeat that for all of our holes. And then once we have all of our hardware installed, we're gonna tighten those down with a 4 millimeter Allen bit and a 10 millimeter wrench. Now we can mount our LED pods to the bracket. Now we have 2 little grooves in here that our nut's gonna slide into. And then we'll throw our bracket over the top. And then we have our 2 Allen screws that are gonna go in through the sides to bolt it down. So looking down into it, we can see our 2 grooves where our nuts are gonna go. Now this does take a bit of patience, but to make it easier, you can grab a pair of needle nose pliers, grab your nut, we're gonna put it into that groove, and then we'll slide our bracket into place, line it up, turn to the side, we'll get our Allen screw down in there, we'll tighten it down, and then we'll do the other one. Then we can lay our bracket in there, pinch our nut into place, and then put our screw through the side. Get that started, and then tighten it down, with our included Allen wrench. And then we can fold our bracket down out of the way and we'll work on our second side. So again, I'll grab the needle nose, slide that in, and then come in through the side with our screw. And then we'll tighten that down with our included Allen wrench. And then once we finish mounting our bracket on this one, we can do the same thing for the other one. So now we can take our LED pod and we'll use our bolt coming through the bottom, and that's going to go through this bracket. And then on top, we'll go with a flat washer, a locking washer, and our nut. And then once we have our hardware in and the light's in a place where we like it, we can take a 13mm wrench and a 13mm socket and snug this down. And then we'll repeat that same process on the other side. Now we can install our brackets. Now these are labeled on the inside with a D or a P for driver or passenger. This one's the driver side, so we're going to work on this one first. So we have 3 holes on the inside that are going to line up to the 3 holes on our bumper. So we'll line it up there. And then we have our M10 by 25 mil bolts. And then we'll be using a flat washer. We'll put that through, put another flat washer and our nut on the other side. And then we can tighten all those down with a 16mm socket and a 16mm wrench. And now we can repeat that same process on the other side. So coming back to the driver's side of the truck, right behind our airbox, we have a grommet tucked back into here that we're gonna have to run our switch through. So we're gonna pry that grommet out, push our switch through and into the driver footwell, and then continue with our wiring. So now coming into the driver's seat, we have our switch that we're gonna have to run into the engine bay. So in the footwell, we have a grommet that we're going to remove and then feed our wire through. And then we can peel back on our double-sided tape, and this will mount really anywhere you'd like it. We're gonna wait to mount it until the end though, just in case we need some extra slack, and if we mount it now, we might run out of room. So our grommet's gonna be to the left of our brake pedal or directly behind our OBD2 sensor, and get a pry tool in there, push our grommet through, and then we can feed the end of our cable up and through our grommet hole. So now we can run our wiring harness. So we have 2 ends that are going to go to our battery posts, and then we have a relay, and then one end is going to connect into the connector that we just ran through our firewall. And then we have our 2 connector for our LED pods. So I'm going to lay our battery connectors down close to our battery. And then for a relay, I'm going to pull up the clip on this wire. We're going to put it through there and it'll keep it nice and neat. So coming to our clip, we can take a clip remover tool, pop that out. And then we're going to put our relay down right on top of that hole, run our clip through the hole in our relay, and back to where it was. Now we can run the wire for our switch connector. So I'm going to come down in front of the radiator and then follow this wire harness all the way across and then go back towards our grommet. Now we're going to follow our hood latch cable, and that's going to put us right underneath the air duct for the intake. So now we're going to run our cord underneath this ground cable and underneath our air box. And then we can grab the connection that we pulled through our firewall and connect those. So now we're going to take an 11mm socket to loosen the nut on our power post. And then we'll get our positive wire, put it right back there, and reinstall our nut. Now we can do the same thing for the ground, but with a 10mm socket. Then we'll put our ground, put our nut back on, and tighten that down. So now for our driver side fog light connector, we're going to follow our harness for our switch. Come right down through the top again. And then we'll take it behind the horns. And then we'll run it up through these harnesses just to keep it nice and neat. Keep it straight going across. So then once again, we're going to be following our hood latch cable. That'll put us right underneath our intake funnel. We're going to pull our slack through. And then we're going to be coming through in this gap between the headlight and this plastic trim piece. And then we'll pull our wire through. And then once we have the bumper mounted and we make that connection, we'll go ahead and zip tie the excess. Now for our other side fog light, we're going to be coming through that gap the same way we did on the other side. And then we'll do the same thing where once we get the bumper on and our connection made, we'll zip tie up the excess. So now we're ready to install our bumper onto the truck. So how we're going to do this is we're going to line up our bracket on the bumper on top of the frame rail bracket here. We're going to take our largest bolt with a flat washer. That's going to come through the back side, go through this bracket and the bracket on our bumper. And then we're going to put another flat washer on the inside, and then we have our locking nut. That's going to go on. We're going to repeat that for this hole, this hole, this hole, as well as the same thing on the other side. So now we can go ahead and lift our bumper onto our car and get our bolt started. This will be a good time for you to grab a buddy, so you can lift on one side while your buddy lifts on the other, and we can get our hardware started. So now we can tighten our bolts down with an 18mm socket and a 19mm wrench. And now we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we can take our fog light harness and connect it to our fog light. And then we're gonna go ahead and bunch up all of our excess. And then we will take a zip tie, and now we can zip tie up our excess. And we'll do that same thing on the other side. So now we can reinstall our grill. So we'll get it lined up, slide it into place. And then we can pull out our wire harnesses up top. Now we can reinstall our 4 factory 10mm bolts on the top side of the grill. And then once we have those started, we can take a 10mm socket, snug these down. So now looking at it from the front of the truck, we're on the bottom right corner of the grill, right next to the headlight, and we can reinstall our 8mm bolt right next to our headlight bolt. And then once we have that started, we can tighten that down with an 8mm socket and repeat that same thing on the other side. So now coming back to the top of the grill, right in the middle near the hood latch, we can reconnect our 3 connectors. And then we can slide our clip back into its hole. Now we can reinstall our radiator cover up top. And then we can reinstall all of our push clips. Now we can reinstall our lower valence. Now we can reinstall our 2 7mm screws. And then we'll tighten those down with our 7mm socket. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now we can come back into our driver's seat, we can grab our switch, pull it back, get the double-sided tape backing off, and stick it down.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the Barricade HD off-road front bumper with LED fog lights for 2021 and newer F-150s. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, for all things F-150, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.